Hey, sorry for the interruption, but we wanted to let you know that this week's episode is brought to you by Spotify for Podcasters. Really cool app. Josiah and I use it for every single show that we bring to you every week. You can edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so you can start creating as soon as you log into the platform. You can easily distribute your podcasts to Spotify and everywhere else the podcasts are heard, just like we do every single week. You can also create video podcasts on Spotify, which is really cool. And of course, you can earn money like I'm doing right now by including ads and even podcast subscriptions. And best of all, it's totally free. There's no catch. We really love it. We use it every single week. So we encourage you to go download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started. All right, let's get back to the show.
Welcome back to the Print on Demand cast. Today we're going to be talking about influencer marketing 202, and I hope you're hungry because we brought lots of waffles. You'll understand here in a second. Here we go. Let's get into it. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Print on Demand cast. And I'm not running solo again. And it's not because the last time went terribly. Well, not as terribly as I felt that it might have gone, but it didn't. No, Travis is here. Travis is here with us here, and you just can't see him. If you're watching on video, it's just me, and then a black square directly to my, well, what is that? My right, my left? I don't know. But Travis, where in the world are you? It's like a roaming reporter. We can hear you're in a truck.
Yep.
Fill the people in. Like, what's happening right now?
Yeah, I'm actually in Nevada, somewhere just outside of Reno. I think I just came into the Tahoe National Forest or something like that. I am driving through a canyon that is absolutely gorgeous. It reminds me so much of Colorado. I'm driving a Penske truck with about, I don't know, lots of thousands of dollars worth of printing equipment. If you listened to a couple weeks ago, we talked about how Make Your Mark Design, the fulfillment side of the company is, we're shutting that down. So I'm literally driving a bunch of equipment out to California. I left yesterday morning. I stayed the night in just over the Nevada border, just over the Utah border in Nevada. And I'm on day 2. I've got about 3 more hours. And I didn't want to miss another show with you. Last week was just, empty, Josiah, without you and without our listeners. I was.
That's awesome. So yeah, I mean, last week you were in Oklahoma. You're in Tulsa, and we talked about that. Yeah. I talked about that on the show. Was that also a Make Your Mark business foray, or what exactly was that for, and what have you been up to? Because people want to know where you've been.
Yeah, so I had an opportunity to go to Tulsa to meet with one of my really great friends and his wife. We've known them for actually over 25 years. Craig was one of the officiants in my wedding. It was him and our pastor, because Craig is as much a pastor to me as anyone I've ever known, and just such a great dude. And had an opportunity to go out there and just be with him and get some spiritual direction, really. I mean, as you can imagine, selling the business and or not selling it, but just getting rid of everything and just all the changes that are going through my life. And I've told you on the podcast, I've done a lot of counseling in the last year. And so all of that kind of culminated in this trip. Well, it's culminating still, but just being with him and allowing him to speak into my life was really, really great. It was so timely. So really thankful to Craig and his wife, Chris. They are so amazing and just wonderful, wonderful people. So so that's why I couldn't join you last week. We couldn't make our schedule sync up on Monday. So here we are. Couldn't do it 2 weeks in a row,
this is what we're doing. And so it's going to be a little bit of a different episode, given that Travis is, actively driving. He can't really look at notes, obviously, because what I said just now. He's actively driving, so we don't want it to be a situation where he's putting his life on the line. He loves you guys, but I wouldn't even allow him to do that, even if he wanted to. So we're going to do things a little bit different. And so for this week's point of interest, it's not print on demand specific, and it might not even be interesting to you, but it is interesting to us, and it's our show.
Point of interest.
All right, so a little peek behind the curtain here for those of you that don't know. So Travis and I in our free time have a lot of, now granted, we have a lot of good conversations that have a lot of good, deep meaning, and it's good, genuinely rich conversation. But then there's a percentage of it that is just chatting about absolute nonsense. And one of those nonsense conversations we had months back was, who's the most famous John, or who's like the best of the famous Johns, right? Who would that be? And we had a lengthy conversation, as you all probably are not surprised and can imagine. That's what happened. So as we're talking about the show, we've always talked about doing a bonus episode of non-print on demand related content. So we're actually going to just take this segment, maybe a little preview of what a non-print on demand specific bonus episode could be like one day, but we're going to have a bracket fight, my friends.
Yeah,
it's happening, and we're going to talk about who is the best famous John, not who's the most famous. That's a different set of prerequisites and qualifications. Just who we feel is the best famous John. So let's get into it here. I'm going to share my screen. Travis can't see it, but you guys watching along with us can. We're back in bracketfights.com. They're not a sponsor, and if they were, I would tell them to do their site better. But they're not, so I'm not going to, and we just get to do what we got. So the first matchup, John F. Kennedy versus John Lennon. That's the first one. And now we have to decide between the two of them, who's the better famous John?
Okay, I just pulled through some type of a toll booth thing, agricultural stop. I don't know what the hell you just said. So can you repeat who the two Johns are, please?
Yeah, John F. Kennedy and John Lennon.
Ooh, oh man, coming right out of the gate. That's tough.
Yeah, and I randomized these, and that's who it gave us. So, of course, one's a former president, and one is a music icon. Who obviously, well, here's what they both have in common. They're both assassinated. So
yeah, that's true.
Both killed, taken way too early, both making a lasting impact in their given spheres, whether it's politically or musically. A lot of people still reference policies of John F. Kennedy, even now, and kind of what his mission was. And same thing with John Lennon, what his core values and missions were. Still has a great effect on a lot of musicians today, a lot of artists, and he's definitely revered. Both of them are revered. But Travis, if you had to pick one, you only pick one. Only one John moves forward. What do we got? Who's going forward?
This one's tough because I feel like whichever John we pick, we're going to piss off a bunch of people, you know?
For sure.
Because, well, I guess that's probably how this is all going to go. But I think because I'm a musician, because the Beatles influenced so much of what we now know as rock and roll. And I love rock and roll. I'm going to go with John Lennon personally.
Yeah, that's also my inclination for the same reasons. Now, I do enjoy, politics to a certain extent. I am informed. I like to learn, and John F. Kennedy definitely was, I guess, actually considered to be a modern, not really a Democrat. Like, he ran, his platform was Democratic platform. He'd actually be considered more of a conservative now, given how things have shifted. But I think still, to your point, given that we're both musicians, and I just How do you beat Paul McCartney and John Lennon's
Uh,
songwriting? Without John Lennon, we are not given half of the amazing hits that we know and that influenced rock with the Beatles. So I will be siding with you as well, simply because of the musician bias, and awarding this one to one John Lennon. Now, moving forward, next match, John Travolta versus John C. Reilly.
oh,
Both actors. You could argue, okay, John Travolta has had a more legendary, he has more iconic characters perhaps in his canon, in his resume, given Grease and Pulp Fiction, Swordfish. So he's done a lot of iconic movie roles. Saturday Night Fever, of course, was another one that was huge. And so that you have the acting pedigree of John Travolta, but I mean, I personally have a soft spot for, John C. Reilly, man. I don't know. It's whatever you want to do, I guess, but Wreck-It Ralph, and a movie that I showed you, and you have not stopped.
I love it.
Spreading the good news of Dewey Cox, Walk Hard, the movie.
Yep.
I for those listening, I showed Travis this when we went to Long Beach, the first night in Long Beach. Usually my job is we get to the hotel, I scope out the electronics, and I basically set up what is a private theater in our hotel room. I connect everything, make sure all the movies are playing correctly, and I have all the entertainment on lock. So the first night I was like, have you ever seen this movie? He said no, and I said, I have to show it to you. And it's
so
pretty
glad
great.
he did. It is not safe for work. Let's just say that.
It's very crass, but
it's a hilarious movie. And John C. Reilly can sing his ass off. That's another thing. Yeah, and he does a really great job. I mean, obviously, Grease. John Travolta can hold a tune.
Both can sing. Yeah, they both got pipes.
Oh man, I think I love John C. Reilly, and I feel like Dewey Cox, the legend of Dewey Cox, is just so great. It just warms my cockles.
Yes, the subcockles of your heart.
As a young child, I had a vinyl record of Grease, and had a massive crush on Olivia Newton-John.
Yeah,
and I mean, just the iconic movies that John Travolta has put out in his career. We may disagree here. I'm a little older than you, so I may have a little bit more affection for John Travolta. But I'm going to go with John Travolta for this one.
Hey, I can't disagree. I like John C. Reilly as well. But again, to your point, John Travolta's acting resume, his pedigree, and being someone that studied musical theater and studied acting, I love John Travolta's performance in Pulp Fiction. It's he does such a good job. Even back to Welcome Back, Kotter, the show he was on in the very beginning of his career. I think personally he's about as crazy as you could get, but as an actor, he's phenomenal. So yeah, I would have to give it to John as well, just because of the depth of his career and what he's done. And so yeah, definitely. All right, we're going to give this one to John Travolta. Next up.
That's fair.
Okay, we now have to finish this. I hate the way they do this, but you have to finish one side of the bracket. So that means it's John Lennon versus John Travolta. Who's going forward? We've already kind of
the way they do this.
It's so dumb.
Before we press record, we just talked about how somebody wants to make a lot of money, redo this site and do it better. This site sucks, but it's the only one we know of right now.
Yeah, if you know of a different bracket war
let us know.
Equivalent, let us know, and we'll be sure not to have them sponsor the show either, but use their product all the time. So, so John Travolta.
John Travolta.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think in terms of icon, John Lennon probably wins that. And the thing is, it's weird to think about it this way, but let's, if John Travolta's life was taken at a young age, he'd probably be more iconic than he is now because he's lived longer, and the back half of his career hasn't been quite as hot as the front half. John
Right.
Lennon was cut down in his prime, so that definitely always the posthumous effect that takes place when a certain celebrity passes away. They almost immediately become more iconic, like Amy Winehouse. In my opinion, Amy Winehouse was a good artist, but when she died, all of a sudden everyone was like, she was an icon. So everyone's status gets elevated even more so after they pass away, especially if they pass away young. But in John Lennon's case, I feel like his case for a lasting legacy had already been cemented with the Beatles, and so him being taken
100%.
away by at gunpoint, it does add to his mystique and his aura and the legacy, but I think it was already locked in with what he had accomplished before that, fateful night in New York City.
Yeah, so I agree 100%. I mean, I think what my decision is going to come down to really is the effect of John Lennon on culture versus the effect of John Travolta on culture. John Travolta has done amazing things, but he has not had near the effect on culture that John Lennon did through his activism, but obviously mainly through his music and what effect that has had on countless numbers of bands that came after the Beatles. And so I'm giving it to John Lennon.
All right. I got to agree. Eventually, we should have a third person that's here to kind of run interference and maybe break the tie sometimes.
Good point.
If we ever do a third or a bonus episode that's non-Prone to Mancast, maybe we'll have a third chair. All right, next matchup, John Wayne versus John Mayer.
Oh, you're killing me, Smalls. Oh, that's brutal.
The Duke versus John Mayer. Now, I will say, this is one of the scenarios where I'm probably aged out of the John Wayne Appreciation Club.
Me too.
Although I can appreciate the effect that he had, who he was as a star, and an entire generation, my dad's generation, just formed by John Wayne westerns and the tough man, and that whole persona. So I can definitely appreciate
for better or for worse.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I can definitely appreciate the effect that he had on culture. I just wasn't around to experience it. However, if you want to talk about the opposite of tough guy, not in a detrimental way, but John Mayer definitely gets you in touch with your feels through his phenomenal music. You and I both had the awesome opportunity to see him a year ago in Denver, and I would go to that man's show
every
10
night.
more times. Oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. He's so good. So good.
Yep.
So again, the musician bent aspect might have already kind of skewed, because John Mayer is probably one of my favorite artists of all time. I love his music, love his guitar playing. He's just freaking
so
savant. Yeah, he's crazy. But also the fact that I feel like the gravitas of John Wayne might be lost on me because I just didn't experience him in any form of his prime.
I think for me, I agree with everything you've said. I'm the same way. John Wayne really wasn't around, in my formative years, as, watching movies or whatever. He had kind of already had his heyday. However, I will say, though, that I think as much, maybe not as much as John Lennon influenced music, John Wayne influenced movies,
for sure.
So I want to tip my cap to John Wayne, but like you, I don't think I can give him the win because I just have so much respect for John Mayer's talent and his ability. And again, like you said, I just have more, I don't have as much experience of John Wayne or his movies to, in the same way that I have John Mayer. So I'm going to say John Mayer.
Same. So that one is done. John Mayer moves ahead. Here we go. The last one in the first round, Johnny Depp or John Krasinski?
Oh, man. I freaking love The Office.
I know.
It's one of my I've watched that thing through. I'm probably on my fourth time now. I
Yeah.
love The Office. It's
Yeah.
so great.
It's the quintessential for me. It's like I need background noise. Okay. Or I just want to watch something that I can just
Right.
kind of laugh at. And, it's either that for me, it's The Office, or recently I've been watching a lot of old episodes of Impractical Jokers because that show also
Oh yeah,
makes me laugh.
that's
So it's
yep,
kind of
yep.
vacillated between those two shows. But yeah, I mean,
On the
Johnny
other
Depp,
side,
John
though,
Krasinski. I mean, Johnny Depp, you want to talk about
he
a
is
dude that's,
he is one of the best actors I've ever seen. He can
yeah,
play anything, any role. He is so
yep,
freaking weird. And
yeah,
if you just see him in an interview, he just seems like such a mundane, just kind of boring
yeah, just a
dude.
very plain dude. I think
But
the first
man,
time
he can do anything. He can do any part and do it
yeah,
amazingly
do it
well.
well. Yeah, one of the first things I ever saw him in when I was little was the movie What's Eating Gilbert Grape, which was also one of the first
Yep.
times I saw Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yep.
But Johnny Depp's first, this gives you some context for how long he's been in the business. His first role on film was playing the boyfriend of one of the characters in the first Nightmare on Elm Street. So that's how
Wow.
long he's been in the business. And so, but yeah, to your point, he and not even to say that everything he does I loved, but
Mhm.
he's just
Yeah.
he's
Don't watch Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
exactly that's exactly what I thought. Like, no,
Gene Wilder is Willy Wonka. Screw you, Johnny Depp, for doing
yeah.
that. But
Well, now Timothy
you
Chalamet
did an
is
amazing
going to play
job
Willy
at a
Wonka.
really, yeah, I'm excited for that. But he did a really good job playing a really freaking warped Willy Wonka.
He
So
did
even
a
his
good
bad
job.
movies,
Yeah,
he acts really well in.
he did a good job playing a Willy Wonka in Tim Burton's universe, which is
Right.
which is a qualifier because
Dark
Tim Burton's a
place.
weird man. And so for the universe he was in, it's probably spot on. But yeah, and again, I think one of my favorite, which a lot of people haven't seen this movie, but it's called Black Mass, and it's the story of Whitey Bulger, who was a notorious crime boss in Boston in the 70s, and Johnny Depp plays Whitey Bulger in that movie, and
Wow.
he is really, really good. It's kind of a departure from everything he's ever done. It's the only movie of his that he's watched in person after it's done. He's never seen any of his other movies. And so, yeah, I mean, you just look at like the career, he dwarfs John Krasinski by quite a bit. However, John, I mean, tip of the cap, John
John's done
also
some
has
cool stuff.
yeah, and he's done a lot of. I mean, he did A Quiet Place 1 and 2, which was great.
Yep.
He wrote that,
Yep.
like he wrote and directed it. So he's definitely done a lot to after The Office. It's just unfortunately for me, it's always one of those things where I'm going to be like, hey, why is Jim running away from the alien, or what is Jim doing in the army?
What is Jim playing Jack Ryan? That doesn't go together.
Why is Jim playing Dr. Reed from the Fantastic Four? I'm very confused.
Right.
So, and which isn't, he's not being typecast. It's just who he, I mean, it's just, I can't not see it, basically.
Right. Exactly. Yep. I'm in agreement. I mean, I think Johnny Depp wins this one.
Yeah. Same here. Let's ring that bell, make it official as if it means something. Sweet. Okay. So next.
Oh, here we go. Got to finish out that side of the bracket.
Yeah. John Mayer or Johnny Depp?
I'm saying Johnny Depp. I love John Mayer, but Johnny Depp is just so talented. I don't want to get in, into weird spots here, but like the whole Amber Heard thing just made me like him even more.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I do love John Mayer. I do think though, if you compare careers, even though in their different fields, I think Johnny Depp is a musician as well. He's a guitar player.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I would have to give this one to him as well, even though it is sad to say goodbye to John Mayer in this tournament. And the other thing, well, I guess I can say this coming up because now we have the finals: John Lennon or Johnny Depp.
Oh man, this is a great final. I mean, you say who's the best John? Who's the best famous John?
Yeah.
And these two are on everyone's list, I would think.
Yeah.
I mean, we could go with the technicality and just give it to John Lennon because it's Johnny Depp. You know what I mean?
That's
But
true.
let's not do that. That would be unfair. Wow. I mean, you have somebody who, again, has just influenced the music world in such a profound way. I mean, there are so many bands and so many musicians that credit their band formation, their songwriting style, their musical style to what the Beatles,
Yeah.
came up with, originally. So many people. While Johnny Depp's an incredible actor, as we've pointed out, I think I do have to give this to John Lennon.
Yeah, I mean it's a compelling case too. I mean, I know it's probably not as well documented, but I'm sure there are a handful of actors who got into the business because of Johnny Depp, because of the length of time he's been in the industry.
True.
I know when I was in college, and kind of you talk about there's two types of acting roles. There's the leading roles, and then there's the character actor. And I always identified more with the character actor because I thought the idea of immersing myself in a character was way more fun than always playing the same leading man every single time you're in a show or a play. The character actor is where you get to have the fun. You get to be, an old grandpa, or I got to be an old Jewish man or whatever. Like you get to lose yourself in those characters. So Johnny Depp was one of those actors that I looked at and thought, that's what he does. He's a character actor. He's not the leading man all the time. However, in the context of culture, and to your point earlier about impacting culture, I would have to again say John Lennon probably has impacted culture more than Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp has, in his own ways. You mentioned Amber Heard, probably more so through that in recent years, and that whole fiasco. But nonetheless, I would have to agree. I will give this to John Lennon. So there you have it, folks. John Lennon is, in our opinion, the best famous John. So there you go. So yeah, right. That was fun. Yeah, let us know what you guys think. Who do you agree? Do you have another John that should have been on the list? Would you like to see more nonsense like this? Maybe I think it'd be fun to do like a Facebook Live and do one of these silly debates.
Yes.
And bring someone
have
on.
People comment and people could jump on and comment. I mean, let's not fool ourselves. There's a significant portion of our audience that has fast forwarded through that entire section to this point, and they're hearing us. They're just like, okay, who won? John Lennon. All right, cool. Get to the freaking main event.
yeah, exactly. Can we get to the main event, please, for the love of God? And to you, I say, yes, we can.
Ladies and gentlemen, the main event.
All right, Travis. So the main event today, you mentioned, following up on last week's show, which I will say again was an interesting foray into talking into a microphone by myself. Wasn't the same without you either. But
you did a great job. And hey, listeners, didn't Josiah do a great job? Cue applause.
Oh yeah, good job. Yeah, hey. Thank you. Thank you. There we go. So I was going to say it feels self-serving to push the button, but he made me do it. So
I did. The interesting thing is, you don't know this, and neither do our listeners, but because of whatever way I'm connected, I can't hear any of the sound effects. So I just assume
that we're playing it.
All
That's
the bumpers
funny.
happen, and I just shut up until you start talking again.
That's awesome. That's really funny, actually. Oh, that's great. So, all right, yeah. So you said doing a follow-up on last week's episode. So tell us what's the follow-up on Influencer Marketing 101?
Yeah. So, when we were talking about what we were going to talk about today, I let Josiah know that someone actually sent an email it on Monday in episode, and I've got questions. I'd love to chat sometime if you're available, or maybe I could just type out, some questions in email or whatever. And I was like, hey, dude, I'm going to be on the freaking road for 2 days. I got time. I got plenty of time. So
Yeah.
I invited him to give me a call. And so Paul gave me a call today, and we had probably a 30-minute call talking about influencer marketing. And so I thought a lot of his questions were really good, and I thought we could talk about, I feel like I can talk about what we talked about without like giving away the farm or,
Sure.
or revealing his niche or anything like that. Because I think what we were talking about was really interesting. And I think it does kind of go towards a influencer marketing, 202 class or a 2.0, or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
And so I just thought we could chat about that. And because it really does, I think, build on the foundation that you laid last week. You kind of went through the whole gamut. And if you haven't listened to that episode, hop over to the website, printondemancast.com, and go listen to it, and then come back here and listen to this point of interest, because I do think what I talked about with Paul really will kind of build upon what Josiah shared last week.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I mean, someone reached out, and that was really cool when you're like, hey, someone actually called. Like, oh, that's cool. So yeah, fill us in. Tell us a little bit about like what were some of his questions and kind of what you guys chatted about.
So basically, he has a niche that he's been in for a while, and he's relatively new to print on demand, but he's been involved in this particular niche for quite a while, just doing other things in it. And but he basically, through a series of events, he found himself with a DTF printer, and he's bought a DTF printer, and he's basically doing what I would call like local orders for the people that he knows that are in this niche.
Sure.
Someone wants 50 shirts, someone wants 100 shirts, someone wants whatever. And so he's just been doing that. And then he heard this episode on influencer marketing, and he's like, man, I know all of these people in this particular niche that have, thousands and thousands of followers on different social media channels. We didn't get into which social media channel they had followers on, but I think there was one he said had like over 1 million followers in this particular niche, and he knows all of them really well because he's been in the in the industry for so long. And so he's like, I'd love to serve them, as kind of a side hustle. I want to basically allow my wife to stay home and not have to go to work because she doesn't like her job. I like my job. I'm going to keep doing it, but I'd like for her to be able to stay home and just work on some of this stuff. And so his main question was like, how do I what is how do I get these influencers selling product? Like what platform do I use? What do I, do I just, build them out a Shopify site and, and then the next guy build them out a shop and just go in. And so I basically presented him two options that I saw as viable in his situation. And one was, of course, Deco Network. Although that's fairly pricey. But the cool thing is like we've talked about this on the show. You can, at a certain plan, you get web stores, and you can have up to 500, I think, on a particular plan of these web stores. And the cool thing is that the person that you build the store from gets a login, so they can log in, they can change prices, they can add shirts, add other products. They can do a whole lot on the back end. They can see how much they've made. It gives them a lot of access to the site. But it is pricey, and that was something that, both you and I have done. And so there is some learning curve to that, and it's maybe not as e-commerce friendly as a Shopify, but it's very user friendly for the client. So that was the first option. But the one that I thought was really intriguing, and I think he's going to end up going with, was not creating Shopify stores for all of these different people, but because he's so niche focused, And he actually does some physical products as well in this particular niche. He does some 3D printing of some physical products already, and sells these products, and they're in the same niche. And so my suggestion to him was build the best niche specific website on Shopify for this one niche and invite those other influencers onto your website and use either some type of a code when their listeners buy something, so they get the percentage, so they would get the full commission, I guess, on their stuff, but then they could also get a commission on other people's profits or on other people's products that are on there too. And they could get a discount code, and then that code would show, you run a report at the end of the month, you see everything that was bought with this code, and then through using SKUs, you would put like, influencer 1 dash t-shirt dash, design 3 dash red dash small.
Right.
And you would be able to read that code and see which influencer was actually would be credited with that sale, minus a commission if there was one to another influencer that sent that person through the code. So there's like all of this potential for cross promotion. There's all of, and there's so many things you can do as a that Paul can do, and like creating discounts on certain products. Hey, next month we're going to do, 10% off, all for, to the influencer. You're going to make 10% more on every hoodie you sell, so, whatever that commission was, now they get 10% more. And it incentivizes them to post, to wear that shirt on their YouTube or whatever, or on their Instagram or TikTok or whatever, and say, hey, go to my shop, check it out. Here's your discount. Here's the code. Make sure you use this code and you'll get 10% off, whatever. There's so many different things you can do. But simultaneously, he puts his products on there, and he has an opportunity to have a much larger audience for his own products. Even if he's paying some commission, he told me his margins on these products, they're in the 80s, like 80% plus margins on some of these products. So he has some room.
Yeah, he's got some,
to pay out some affiliate money, or some percentages on this stuff. And then in the end, he has this dominant website that has multiple people from multiple places, all driving traffic. So the SEO is going to be fantastic because it's going to come from all these different places. And they're all driving traffic to his site that he really owns. Now, we did talk about like setup, and you mentioned this last week. They have to have some skin in the game. And so some type of setup, maybe $250, $500 gets you 5 designs on whatever products he wants to fulfill, or something along that line. Just so he has a little bit of cash to pay for his time, pay for his VA, if he's going to have a VA, like design him some things, or whoever's going to do that for him. And then the client, the affiliate guy, they have skin in the game, so they need to make that $500 back. So they're going to obviously promote it and do their best to promote it. So, I mean, there's just so many things. As I was thinking about this, I'm like, man, I wish I had a niche that I knew a bunch of, it's really started me thinking, maybe I should do that in another niche. What do I know? Do the best print on demand site ever. I don't know. I mean, I can tell by our t-shirt sales on our site that t-shirts are not the way to go with print on demand people.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. No, that's a great idea. And that's something too, like towards the end of What For Apparel, Jason and I are having conversations for a site that he wanted to be kind of like that, as far as that model, which I think works in this case because it's specifically niched. The idea that Jason was wanting to run with was something that I thought was maybe too broad to be effective, because then you're not niche down. You're novelty shirt site 4,332 on page 12 of Google, and then you're throwing so much money at Google ads to try and get to page 8 even, or whatever. And so, but if it's niche down like this and the influencers are driving traffic to the site, I think you're doing a lot of things simultaneously. I think you are suddenly becoming, kind of the expert in that niche when it comes to t-shirts and merch, and you do a good job with a couple of the right influencers, and you're going to be the guy in that niche.
Yep.
Kind of like I last week I mentioned with Pro Wrestling Tees, the guy in Chicago took a recommendation from an independent wrestler who said, "Hey, dude, you should do this model." He did it, and now everyone that's an independent professional wrestler that's not signed, even those that are signed to some companies, will still sell shirts on there because he's just the guy. It's his deal now.
Exactly.
And the other thing that kind of does too is it's kind of like a virtual consignment store. Like you go into Waco, Texas. I went to Waco, Texas, went to the shop, and it's a massive store. And it's divided into different sections. So different merchants are going and selling their stuff inside of one giant store, and their products are tagged with a certain tag that when the person scans it, the system knows that shop 4 is going to get the credit for that sale. So they get a cut of the portions. And also other people get more eyes on their products because it's a giant open space. So it's kind of that same concept of a giant, shopping center with different people selling different stuff, and you're getting the benefit of cross traffic. He's getting the benefit of traffic that he would never get aside from these relationships with influencers. So I think that's a brilliant model. I just would say, for sure, to your point, you don't want to be listing shirt designs for free. You don't want your VA to be listing shirt designs for free,
right?
Because influencers, the other thing that you have to look out for is the cardinal rule in Scarface the movie, right, with Al Pacino, and coming soon, Al Pacino to the battle of most famous Al's. I don't know that many, but Al Roker, Al Bundy,
Al
Pacino.
Bundy. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So but the rule as in the movie is a cocaine dealer was never high on your own supply. Well, some of these influencers are kind of high on themselves. And they think that they're owed more than they actually are because they're famous in the subculture that they're famous in. So you do have to be prepared for some entitlement to be thrown your way from these people who, if they don't realize that outside of this particular niche, that no one knows who they are. And so you have to deal with that and use discernment as to times when you're like, okay, I will do this one thing for you as a free service, because I'm trying to get this thing off the ground. There might be some of that in the beginning, but hold that line and define that line closely, because if you take the responsibility of listing shirts for all of these influencers, it'll become a part of your reputation, because most likely it's going to be word of mouth within the niche that people will find you from one influencer to the other. And some people will come to you because you're the guy that does all the work for me for free. And then that sucks because you're getting railed. Your time is disappearing, and they don't have any skin in the game. So you can tell that I've had that experience. So I'm just adamant about protecting yourself.
Right. Yeah. So as we were kind of wrapping up the conversation, I'm sure if I gave you long enough to think about it, you would know the last piece of advice I gave him before we got off the phone. And it was, of course, get organized with your SKUs, with your designs. Have some type of a spreadsheet that has every piece of data for that particular product, every single color, every single size. Just do it now, because you will be so thankful when you have 10, 20 different influencers that are all on your site, and they're all sending you orders. Make sure that your system can accommodate the growth that you're anticipating. It's like that, I talked about it on the podcast we did a few weeks ago, or we rebroadcast a few weeks ago. You never heard was build now for what you want to become. Build it now the way it needs to be when you become the thing that you want to be in the future. And so that was my last piece of advice to him. And we had a great conversation. Paul, if you're listening, thanks for reaching out. Was super glad to chat with you, and wish you all the success in the world. Maybe once you get it all done and you're cruising along, we could have you on the show and just talk about
for sure.
the way it went, the journey that it took to get there, and because there's inevitably going to be, some things that we can learn along the way as you build this thing, things to avoid in the future, and just all of that. But great conversation, great dude, great idea. I mean, I'm super excited for him. He's going to do really great.
That's awesome. Yeah, congrats, Paul. And again, we're looking forward to hearing about your progress, having you on the show, following up, and just kind of hearing your journey and experience with influencer marketing. So
yeah.
That's awesome. Travis, anything else before we wrap it up?
Nope. I'm still driving in a canyon that is beautiful. Do you have a picture? Do you have a picture you can show of
yeah.
like how beautiful? I just randomly snapped a shot at in Salt Lake City at a gas station. Just randomly look across the street, and there's this gorgeous mountain. It's just sitting there, just like, hey, Travis, how you doing? I'm just a mountain in Utah.
Just a mountain. Yeah, here you go. For those that are watching, right there at a gas station. Yeah, it's a beautiful mountain. You got some nice clouds there behind you. So Travis is enjoying nature, getting some hardcore windshield time for sure, which is great. Yeah, lots of it. So that's awesome. Well, I guess to wrap it up, I was listening to a leadership podcast recently, and the guy gave a really good piece of advice when, talking about the road that, people take in life, and some is harder than the others. And he was just saying, listen, don't blame other people for the road that you're on. That's your own asphalt. All right.
Thank you for doing that. I was actually thinking, oh man, we didn't have a dad joke lined up. What are we going to do? And I literally had just grabbed my phone, and I'm like, no, I don't want to look at the phone. I can't do this while I'm driving. Josiah, and I sent you mental brain waves, and you picked up on it. So good job.
Yes. Telepathy. It's one of my many hidden talents. Yes. So, all right. Thank you guys so much for listening to the show. And listen, if you want to get in touch with us,
hotline fans,
there's a couple ways you can do that. Of course, you can email us like Paul did, and let us know if you have any questions. Let us know if you disagree with our selection of best famous John. Let us know if you have any insight onto influencer marketing and what your thoughts are there as well. Or you can join the Facebook group, printondemancast.com/Facebook. Join the community, the conversation, the group, answer the questions. And we will let you in. Answer them seriously, though, because sometimes I can tell that it's not, they're just, okay. And when you're a part of 4,000 other groups, we know. You can also find the show on printondemancast.com/Instagram and /YouTube, where you can find more content about the show. Printondemancast.com, just by itself, is where you can go to sign up for the newsletter, which is what you're going to want to do, because you're going to get an extra dad joke each and every week, as well as tidbits, information, tips, tricks from Travis and I, about the print-on-demand industry as well.
Speaking of, I actually just updated our opt-in form on the printondemandcast.com opt-in, and I added a little gift. So if you sign up for our newsletter, you will get an annual design calendar. And what it is, basically, is just all of these different events and holidays and topic, seasons and things like that.
Nice.
That you can design for, and then it tells you what month of the year it should be researched, what month it should be finished and posted, and what month the actual event or holiday actually occurs in. And it's just a nice little thing that you can give to your designer if you have a designer.
That's awesome.
We typically use about we probably do 25 to 35% of this list, of like holidays and events and things like that. And then the rest of our content or the rest of our designs are going to be more evergreen that, can be used year round. But that's a free gift if we're trading that for your email. And then you get on our weekly list. We share a bunch of stuff, and you get that extra dad joke. So check out printondemandcast.com. and you'll see a form somewhere because they're all over.
Awesome. Yeah, be sure to do that. And again, wherever you're listening to this, whether it's Apple or Spotify or what have you, leave us a review. Let us know. Rate the show. Leave us a comment. We'd love to hear your feedback that way as well. And you can share the show. You can text it, Facebook it, exit, which is what I would say instead of tweet it, not exit as in leave, but you understand. And so, yeah, thank you guys so much. And until next time, for Travis, I'm Josiah. We'll see you right here on the Print on Demand cast.
See ya.
Hey, babe. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Print on Demand cast. We hope you enjoyed the Totally Tubular show. If you got a question or a suggestion for the show, send Travis and Josiah an email at info@printondemandcast.com. Want to be wicked nice? Take a minute to rate and review the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe now so you don't miss next week's episode. See you next time, for sure.